Welcome to Red-tastic. Story 1. So, I tend to not invite people over as I'm an introvert and prefer to have my own space undisturbed. My stepmom has been taking it personally and decided to invite herself over. I wasn't happy about it, but I didn't say no. She came over, and the moment she walks through the door, points out that my pictures are crooked. No big deal, I'll fix them. She then proceeded to complain about my floors needing to be mopped. I mopped them twice before she came, and told me my place is cluttered. I don't think it is. I just spent the past week going through old toys, things I don't need or use, and just generally getting rid of things. As I have a 6-year-old with ADHD that is easily overstimulated if there is too much around, I felt personally attacked, but I just nodded and let it be, until she demanded that I show her all of my closets. Then I lost my temper, asked if she was going to check my fridge for food and my drawers to make sure all my clothes were folded, and then yelled at her to get out. Not my finest moment, and I do feel really bad for yelling at her. She screamed at me, "You have a child," and asking me what I'm hiding, because I didn't want her going through my things. So I told her that if she's that concerned, then she can call child services on me, since she seems to think I'm a slob for not having a place that is magazine ready, but it's clean in that I live here way. I cried after she left because of how bad I feel now about my place, even though I know it's clean. Then my dad called me demanding I apologize to my stepmom because I made her cry from my place all the way home. And if I don't, he will write me off and never speak to me again, telling me I'm in the wrong and that he raised me better than this, and saying I'm dirty, bringing up the time last year when I got a new couch, how dirty it was underneath when we moved the old one. I cleaned under my couch a week or two prior in preparation for a new one, but again I have a child with ADHD, undiagnosed at that time, and a dog, so whatever was under there was accumulated in that week or two. And he made me feel horrible about that. Told me that if anyone was going to call child services, it's him. And he just made me feel like the worst parent and daughter in the world. I don't want to apologize because I feel like I'm the one that deserves the apology. Maybe I'm wrong and overreacting, but I feel humiliated. You're not the a-hole, OP. Your dad and stepmom are. Your stepmom came to your house uninvited, and then she started to see everything wrong with how you live in your home. If you have a child with ADHD, your house is going to be a little messy. If she came with good intentions, she wouldn't have judged you so hard and made you feel so bad about how you live. And then she asked to see your closet for some weird reason, and then she threatened to call CPS. Your stepmom sounds like a piece of work, and your father just seems to indulge her and take a side. Don't apologize because you did nothing wrong. If your dad can cut you off over this, then that's fine. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. She came over to criticize. She was being rude, and getting told to leave was the natural consequence. Your father is definitely the a-hole, bringing everything including the kitchen sink into his attempt to control you, and threatening a nuclear option over making you bend to his will sucks. It sounds like you're at the very earliest stage of changing the dynamic to insisting on being treated as an adult. Next time, and there will be a next time, lay down the law earlier and with less emotion. You got to the snapping point this time. The second time is easier. You are not wrong and are not overreacting. Not the a-hole. Why does she want to go through your closet? That's really strange. Also, when you move a sofa, it will have stuff underneath it. Your dad and stepmom sound like they have abnormal standards of cleaning. Also, it's pretty rude to just turn up unannounced and expect your home, with a 6-year-old there, picture perfect. My mother-in-law came over once, not unannounced, but at a very bad and stressful time in our lives. She made a comment that she knew how bad we were doing because our house isn't tidy and there were dishes in the sink. Not that she helped tidy or do said dishes. Not the a-hole, OP. There is a saying that goes, cutting people out of your love is like burning bridges. It can land you stranded or incapable of returning or going to certain places. But there are cases that some bridges only lead to toxic, entitled, and mean people. So to that I add the improved version of that, saying I read here in Reddit. May the expendable bridges brighten the way to a better future. Your mother is an entitled, mean, and toxic person. And if your father would rather not hear your side of the story and take his wife's side without questioning what happened, I say, may that bridge burn as bright as a sunny day. Story 2. I'm a 21 female, full-time university student. My nephew is a 6-month who is at risk for being placed in foster care due to my sister's substance addiction. My nephew's biological father is not in the picture. As a result, my family has the option of taking my nephew in instead of allowing him to go into the foster system. I do not want to take my nephew, so I offered to move out of my home with my partner. My mother flipped out, stating to me that she needs me and I'm her emotional support. Basically, she doesn't want me moving out. Since my mother doesn't want me moving out, my family wants me to take on custody of my nephew instead, since I'm young, or to help my mother with raising my nephew. I denied both options because I don't want to raise him. I do not feel emotionally mature enough or emotionally stable enough to raise a child. I have dropped everything in my life to attend school full-time. I told my family that a child deserves better than someone who doesn't feel ready for a child. I would end up resenting the child by no fault of his own. My family didn't take this lightly, and I'm considered the bad guy. My mother has told me I should never have kids if this is how I act when a child is in danger. My mother also stated that I'm a selfish individual for refusing custody, and she doesn't know why I'm so selfish. Also, if the child ends up dead, it is my fault. I feel so bad for my nephew, and I wish I had the resources to help. But apparently that is not enough. I have no money, no car, and I'm not ready to take on a child at this age. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Hello, I'd like to clarify that my nephew is 6-year-old. I know some people are thinking he is 6 months old, so sorry about that confusion. A quick update. I have told my mother to go get custody of the kid despite my views. My mother outright refuses to do so and continues to degrade me with the same comments above this. Edit 2. More clarification. 1. People keep asking why the kid is going to end up dead, and I will answer that. My nephew has been living in a trap house for the last month. My family has called the police and CYS to lift him from that property multiple times. However, since none of the adults in the house are caught using at the moment, nothing comes of it. In order to lift the child, a temporary emergency custody petition must be filed, which, as mentioned above, I already told my mother to go through with it. 2. In regards to a background check to obtain custody, I am legally able to take custody of the child. CYS stated to me that I am able to avoid background checks, financial checks, or provide them proof of a good home if I take custody before the state does. It is very weird and I don't exactly know how that is legal, but whatever. Not the a-hole OP. Your mom seems to be projecting your sister's shortcomings onto you. You did not abandon that child. You go to college and don't have the means or time to give the child what he needs. Hiding behind your emotional maturity isn't really the best answer. So maybe your mom is taking that as you just don't want to. She seems to want you to fill the gap your sister created, keeping your family together. But it also seems like she just doesn't want to take care of the child either. I don't blame either of you, to be honest, but I would think your mom should be the next of kin to take care of your nephew. Expecting you to help just puts you in a shitty position. Now for some comments. It seems to me like your mother feels guilty that your sister has ended up heavily addicted and is losing a child because of it. These are boundary issues that have nothing to do with you. I don't even know you, and I'm proud of you for knowing your limits. Children are a full-time job, and it will change everything in your life. The school you worked so hard for, the relationship you're currently in, absolutely not the a-hole. And also, you sound like a level-headed girl who would make an excellent mother when she's ready. Don't listen to that garbage from anyone ever. Not the a-hole. It's selfish of your family to assume that you would just take custody of the child. Why are they all looking at you to take responsibility? Your mom already had at least 2 children. She could take care of a third one. Why are they all shoving the responsibility towards you? You're the wise one who has a priority sorted and who knows she's not ready yet to take care of a child. I would take your mother's words with a grain of salt if I were you. She just wants to guilt trip you into taking care of that child. You are young, you have a whole life ahead of you, which has just started. Don't let your family take that away from you because they have an option. Not the a-hole. All of your mother's feelings seem like they ought to be directed at the person who made a child they were not able to care for. I'm very sorry for your nephew. This sounds like a really hard situation for everyone. You are not a bad person for deciding that you aren't ready for a child and not accepting responsibility for one that you don't feel capable of caring for. If your mother is ready to care for this child, she should. If the rest of your family is prepared to care for this child, they should. Them wishing that you were able to do something you feel you can't is probably frustrating for them. I hope they don't maintain the short-sighted position of looking down on you for not doing the task that they think needs to be done but won't do themselves. Story 3. I used to write stories. When I was 5, I wrote a bunch of stories about my guinea pig as a superhero, and it progressed from there. When I was 13, I tried writing a full novel, and a lot of my free time was spent thinking of new plot lines, characters, or writing short stories. I loved it. My parents insisted on reading everything I wrote, which was fine at the beginning. Then they decided my mom would be my editor, and they took it way too seriously. I usually wrote on the computer, and they would print out what I had, sit me down, and have me wait while my mom read over it, and marked up the pages with notes. She even bought a bunch of red pens to make it official. I didn't like it, but once again it started okay. It was mostly grammar or sentence structure. Then she started crossing out entire paragraphs, or made me rework characters because she didn't like them. It would start with, "It's good, but..." and then she'd go on for 15 to 20 minutes about everything wrong with it, ranging from grammar to my main character's hair color. I would ask them to stop, and they would get mad and tell me they were trying to help. My mom got so upset that I asked her to stop editing, and she cried once. I tried hiding my writing, but my parents would just go through my room and look at all my notebooks until they found something to read and edit. Once they even confiscated my backpack the moment I got off the bus and read through all of my school notebooks until they found what I was currently working on. I hated it so much and told them every time that I didn't want mom to edit my stuff. Most of the time I was too insecure to even want them to read it, which they knew. And I was just lectured that I couldn't hide my God-given talent, and that as my parents they were entitled to everything I created. It came to a head when my dad went into my room and read my diary because he thought it might have a story in it. I was 16 and decided I was done. My desire to write was officially killed. And even now at 23, it hasn't come back. Every few months since then, they have asked me why I stopped, because somehow they don't know. I usually give an excuse or change the topic to spare their feelings, but today they really pushed it. And I finally told them it was their fault. If they hadn't been so pushy about reading and editing everything to the point of invading my privacy over and over again, I might still be a writer. They lost it, screaming and yelling at me about how they did it because they care about me. How dare I blame them for my own laziness? If I didn't want them to read my stuff, I should have just said that. I did multiple times. And I'm wasting my life punishing myself by refusing to write out of pettiness. I left and now I'm getting texts from other relatives asking why the F I said, or accusing me of not appreciating my parents. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Thank you everyone for the support. A lot of you are telling me to try writing again, and I don't think I will. At least not for a while. I had to leave a lot of stuff out of the post. Thank you, character limit. But the whole thing was actually really traumatizing. When my dad read my diary, he sat me, my mom, and my brother down, and then read the whole thing to us because he hadn't liked what I wrote in it. He and my mom took turns screaming at me for the next hour and threatened to publish parts of it online to show everyone how horrible I was to them. Then they took my phone and grounded me and screamed at me on and off for the next couple weeks. After that, I can't write anything for fun without remembering what happened and feeling humiliated and violated all over again. So yeah, I think that passion is dead for good, or at the very least for a while, but I appreciate all the kind words. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. OMGOP, I'm so sorry. This is heartbreaking. Your parents seem as though they may be so dissatisfied with their own life achievements that they're piggybacking on yours. They made something that was supposed to be fun in your childhood into a job and a chore that they believed they had a say in. Your mother was literally changing the art of your imagination for possible future profit. I'm so sorry this happened to you and hope you find your passion again. Not the a-hole. Unfortunately, this happens too often everywhere with the parents and their kids' likes, sports mostly. They push the kids to the limits in which they hate what they once loved, and they never realize it till it's too late. You're not the a-hole for telling them a truth that they refused to see. Instead of helping you to develop that talent, they killed it, and no one will know how good you could have been. Don't mean that you were a disaster or anything like that. Please don't take it that way. Geez, not the a-hole. I once was into making some art that was to be sold at my grade 6 fundraiser. Sure, it might not have been the best, but I was very happy, very proud, very young and still learning. My mom told me they weren't good and that no one would ever buy them. Ha, some did. I was crushed, stopped midway through the one I was working on, and in the years since never touched that art form again. Years later, she apologized and said it is one of her biggest parenting regrets. I appreciated that, but the damage was done. I realized since then, I'm not excited to show them any art, and have done so maybe only a handful of times since I moved out. Your experience is much worse. I'm sorry that happened.